39,000 wheels, 1.7 billion rupees, and a big question. Imagine for a moment a brand new train sitting on the platform, shiny seats, new lights, everything ready to roll, except it can't move because the wheels aren't there. That's the picture behind this story. Here are the headline facts, plain and sharp. India signed contracts to buy 39,000 train wheels from a China-linked manufacturer for 1.7 billion rupees, or about $21 million, and the reported unit price was roughly 1.68% higher than an earlier deal India had with a Ukrainian supplier. On paper, it looks odd. A country that talks about Make in India paying slightly more to import something it could plausibly make. Naturally, people asked, why buy from China? Why pay more? Why not make them here? This is where the real drama starts. The numbers are the hook, but the stakes are bigger than price tags. Wheels delayed mean finished trains that can't run, projects held up, commuters inconvenienced, and of course, political anger. It's like ordering tires for a fleet of buses and watching the buses idle because the supplier across the border can deliver faster, even if your local garage has the tools. That tension, speed, cost, national pride, is what this video will unpack. But before we point fingers, there's a technical twist. These aren't ordinary steel rings. The next section explains why train wheels, especially for faster modern carriages, are a very tricky thing to make. At first glance, a train wheel looks simple, a big ring of steel bolted to an axle. But in reality, each wheel is a masterpiece of precision engineering. Think of it like baking a perfect loaf of bread. You can't just mix flour and water and expect it to rise evenly. Every ingredient, temperature, and minute of baking time matters. The same goes for train wheels, except the ingredients are steel, heat, and pressure measured down to the decimal. High-speed or semi-high-speed train wheels, like the ones used in India's Vande Bharat Express, are forged from a single block of ultra-pure steel. That steel must have oxygen content below 0.0002% and almost zero impurities. Why? Because even the tiniest flaw, a bubble, an uneven metal grain, can cause the wheel to crack when a 400-ton train races over it at 160 kilometers per hour. At that speed, a wheel failure isn't just a technical issue, it's a life or death disaster. The process goes through several intense steps: cutting the billet, heating it to red-hot temperatures, forging it under massive hydraulic presses, then heat-treating it to strengthen the metal. After that comes fine machining, balancing, and rigorous testing. Every wheel must pass microscopic inspections before it can touch a rail track. Here's the catch: only 5 countries in the world, China, Japan, Germany, France, and Italy, have full-scale industries capable of producing these wheels at the quality and speed required for modern trains. That's how specialized it is. India, for all its industrial strength, still faces a major gap here. Local factories can produce basic wheels for older trains, but not the precision-forged ones needed for faster, safer, and more advanced carriages. It's not that India doesn't have steel. It's that this kind of manufacturing needs decades of metallurgical know-how, special furnaces, and testing labs built for aerospace-level precision. So, when India's homegrown Vande Bharat trains were completed but still waiting for wheels, the government faced a tough choice: wait years to perfect domestic production, or import wheels now to get the trains running. And that's where Ukraine entered the story, before everything went wrong. China's ultimate goal isn't just about efficiency, it's about control and security. For decades, global trade has been dominated by maritime routes largely monitored by Western powers, especially through choke points like the Strait of Malacca and the Suez Canal. Around 80% of China's oil imports pass through the Malacca Strait, a narrow passage that could easily be blocked during geopolitical tensions. So, to reduce this vulnerability, China is building what you could call the Iron Silk Road, a vast network of railways, pipelines, and logistics hubs stretching from its coastal industrial cities through Central Asia, the Middle East, and deep into Europe. This is part of the Belt and Road Initiative, launched in 2013, which now involves over 150 countries and trillions of dollars in infrastructure projects. The idea is simple but powerful. If ships can be stopped, trains cannot. Overland trade through rail is faster than shipping by sea, more reliable than air freight during crises, and less vulnerable to naval blockades. This strategy also gives China a strategic economic advantage. By connecting with countries across Eurasia, from Kazakhstan to Iran to Germany, China can set up trade corridors where it controls not just the routes, but also the financing, technology, and logistics systems behind them. Think of it like building a private internet of trade, a network where China owns the cables, routers, and data centers. In this case, the data is oil, metals, and manufactured goods. And this plan is now entering a new phase, connecting directly with the Middle East and Europe by land to bypass the oceans entirely. In mid-2024, something remarkable happened. China officially launched a direct freight train route connecting its eastern provinces to Iran and then onward to Europe. This new route is part of the International North-South Transport Corridor, which links China to Central Asia, Iran, the Caucasus, and Europe, effectively creating a land bridge between the Pacific Ocean and the Mediterranean. Here's how it works. Trains start in Zhengzhou, a major logistics hub in central China. They travel across Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan before entering Iran, one of the key transit countries. From there, the cargo moves through Iran's rail network to Bandar Abbas on the Persian Gulf, or continues north through Tehran toward Turkey and Europe. This land corridor cuts travel time dramatically. Shipping a container from China to Europe by sea can take around 40 to 45 days. By rail through Iran, it can take just 15 to 18 days, less than half the time. But speed isn't the only advantage. This new route avoids the Suez Canal, where about 12% of global trade passes and where disruptions, like the Ever Given ship blocking the canal in 2021, can cost the world economy billions of dollars a day. The rail route also bypasses areas patrolled by Western navies, giving China and its partners more independence from Western-controlled choke points. And there's another major win here. Iran is rich in oil and gas, and by becoming a key transit hub, it gains new leverage and income. For China, that means easier, cheaper, and more secure access to Middle Eastern energy, all without relying on risky sea routes. In short, this isn't just a train route, it's a statement that global trade no longer has to move only through Western-dominated waters. China is building its own arteries of commerce across land. China and Iran's cooperation on this rail route goes far beyond logistics. It's a geopolitical move with massive economic consequences. For years, Iran has been isolated by Western sanctions, especially from the United States, which has tried to choke its oil exports and restrict its access to the global banking system. But now, with China as a willing partner, Iran has found a powerful way out. Here's how it works. Iran sells oil to China, but instead of using United States dollars, which would make it vulnerable to sanctions, the two countries are increasingly trading in Chinese yuan. Some of these payments are even settled through China's CIPS system, an alternative to the SWIFT banking network that most Western countries depend on. This allows Iran to keep its oil exports flowing while avoiding the reach of United States financial controls. And for China, it's a win-win. It secures a steady flow of discounted Iranian oil, while also pushing the internationalization of the yuan as a global trade currency. Iran is also strategically vital for China's Belt and Road Initiative. Its geographic position, sitting right between Central Asia, the Persian Gulf, and Europe, makes it an ideal hub for both energy and logistics. By investing in Iran's infrastructure, railways, and ports, China is effectively building a Middle Eastern gateway to Europe that's outside Western influence. The partnership also sends a message. If the West can weaponize sanctions and control sea routes, China and Iran can build new trade systems that don't need either. This cooperation is already expanding. Reports suggest that Chinese firms are helping Iran modernize its rail lines, upgrade energy facilities, and even install digital logistics networks, all designed to integrate Iran into China's growing Eurasian trade web. In essence, this alliance isn't just about moving goods, it's about moving power. Power away from the dollar, away from Western-controlled trade routes, and toward a new economic bloc led by China and its partners. While headlines often focus on United States-China tensions, something interesting is happening behind the scenes in Europe. Despite Washington's efforts to discourage cooperation with China and Iran, European countries are quietly increasing their trade along the new Eurasian rail corridors. Here's why. For European businesses, practical economics often outweigh politics. The rail route from China through Iran and Turkey to Europe offers faster delivery times and lower costs compared to shipping by sea, especially for high-value goods like machinery, electronics, and car parts. When supply chains are fragile, as seen during the pandemic or Red Sea disruptions, speed and reliability are everything. Countries like Germany, Italy, and Hungary are already seeing the benefits. Several European logistics hubs, such as Duisburg in Germany, which is Europe's largest inland port, have become key destinations for Chinese freight trains. In fact, Duisburg now handles over 30 trains a week from China, many of which are part of this expanding overland trade network that can reroute through Iran or Central Asia when maritime routes face bottlenecks. For Europe, this growing connection offers an alternative to dependence on shipping routes that pass through unstable regions, or are subject to naval blockades and rising insurance costs. It also strengthens direct economic links with China, the European Union's largest trading partner, while diversifying away from over-reliance on the United States-led transatlantic system. The irony is striking. Even as Western governments talk about decoupling from China, European companies are quietly recoupling through rail. The promise of faster trade and lower costs is simply too attractive to ignore. And with Iran positioned as the critical middle link between Asia and Europe, European nations are finding themselves indirectly connected to Tehran, whether they intend to or not. Every container that rolls through Iran's rail lines represents a small but meaningful step in reshaping global trade geography. In short, while politicians debate ideology, economics is redrawing the map, and China's overland routes are pulling Europe closer to the heart of Eurasia. The rise of China's overland trade network, connecting Asia to Europe through Iran and Central Asia, isn't just an economic story. It's a geopolitical wake-up call for the United States. For decades, the United States has relied on its naval power, control of sea routes, and the dominance of the dollar to influence global trade. Most global shipping flows through areas where the United States Navy can project power, and the dollar serves as the default currency for international transactions. Now, China is quietly building a system that sidesteps both. By investing in rail corridors, ports, and logistics hubs, China can move goods faster, cheaper, and outside Western-controlled channels. And by settling trade in yuan rather than dollars, especially with countries like Iran, it weakens the long-standing dominance of the United States currency. Over time, this could reduce America's leverage to impose sanctions or influence global trade decisions. Think of it like this. For the past 70 years, the United States has been the highway cop controlling the world's trade highways and toll booths. China is now building a parallel freeway system that bypasses the tolls entirely. This isn't happening overnight, but each train rolling from Zhengzhou through Tehran to Europe chips away at the United States' exclusive control. The implications ripple outward. Strategic vulnerability. United States allies may have more options in trade, reducing America's bargaining power. Economic shifts. Chinese goods can reach Europe faster and cheaper, boosting China's competitiveness. Geopolitical pressure. countries under sanctions like Iran now have alternative partners and pathways to participate in global trade. In short, the rise of China's land-based trade routes is more than logistics. It's a strategic shift in global influence. The United States can no longer rely solely on sea power and the dollar to maintain its historical edge. So, what does all this add up to? At first glance, it might seem like a story about trains, wheels, and logistics, but zoom out and it becomes a story about global power, strategy, and the reshaping of trade itself. China's direct rail connections through Iran to Europe show that the world's supply chains are no longer confined to oceans controlled by a few naval powers. They can move over land faster and with fewer obstacles, and they can bypass financial systems dominated by the United States dollar. Countries like Iran gain new leverage, Europe finds quicker, cheaper trade options, and China strengthens its position as a global trade architect. For India, the lesson is immediate and concrete. Supply chain reliability can outweigh politics, price, or national pride. Just as India had to import high-speed train wheels from China to keep its trains running, countries increasingly face tough choices in a world where capacity, speed, and reliability matter as much as cost and sovereignty. Looking ahead, we're entering a world where trade routes are more flexible, multipolar, and strategically contested. Nations that invest in infrastructure, technology, and reliable partnerships will thrive, while those relying solely on old systems may face delays, higher costs, or even strategic vulnerability. In the end, it's not just about trains or rails, it's about how the new arteries of global commerce are being laid, and who controls them. Each container, each wheel, each rail line tells a story about the shifting balance of power in the 21st century. So, what do you think? Are countries like India making the right moves by prioritizing speed and reliability over politics? And how will China's overland trade networks reshape the global economy in the next decade? If you want to follow more stories like this, about trade, strategy, and how the world is changing, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. We'll keep bringing you the insights behind the headlines, one story at a time.